predicting box office success can be a tricky task. While films like Star Wars and Titanic soar to unexpected heights of success, others end up as major financial disappointments. Even in recent years, sequels such as the Marvels and Joker Folie Deux, following the success of their predecessors, suffered significant losses, costing their studios millions. However, some of these failures are far from surprising. They're the result of films that were never in demand to begin with. Many of these flops are sequels to self-contained stories, while others stem from unconventional ideas that couldn't spark audience interest. Here are 10 box office bombs that no one really wanted. So, the 10th box office flop movie that nobody asked for is It's a Wonderful Life. It might be surprising now, but It's a Wonderful Life was a box office failure when it first premiered. Though now celebrated as a timeless holiday classic, audiences in the mid-1940s were not rushing to see a movie about a good man on the brink of despair, contemplating suicide until an angel shows him how much he matters. While the film is far more uplifting than this premise suggests, its darker themes stood out compared to the lighter holiday fare of the era. Despite its initial struggles, the movie found a second life on television in the 1970s. By then, its heartfelt themes and enduring messages resonated with viewers, solidifying its place as an essential holiday favourite. Few flops have achieved the lasting legacy of It's a Wonderful Life, and even fewer are as deserving of their iconic status. And the 9th box office flop movie that nobody asked for is The Lone Ranger. The Lone Ranger and Tonto, iconic since their 1930s radio debut, had largely faded from the spotlight by the 2010s. In 2013, Disney attempted to revive the duo with The Lone Ranger, but the film flopped both critically and commercially. While Armie Hammer is serviceable as the titular character, Johnny Depp is disastrously miscast as Tonto, with both actors hampered by weak dialogue. The movie's attempt to mimic the tone and style of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, another collaboration between Depp and director Gore Verbinski, only highlighted how much weaker it was in comparison. And the 8th movie on our list is Lightyear. For over 2 decades, the Toy Story franchise has been a beloved staple of animated cinema, both critically and financially. Buzz, Tim Allen, Woody, Tom Hanks, and the rest of the gang have become iconic to multiple generations, with fans enjoying the ensemble dynamic that defines the series. Despite this, Pixar ventured into spin-off territory with 2022's Lightyear, an origin story for Buzz Lightyear, reimagined as a cosmic explorer and voiced by Chris Evans. Framed as the in-universe movie that inspired the Buzz Lightyear toys, the film had potential, but ultimately fell short. Its uninspired sci-fi narrative and the absence of Tim Allen alienated fans, resulting in Lightyear becoming the franchise's first and only box office failure. And the 7th box office flop movie that nobody asked for is Evan Almighty. Jim Carrey was one of the biggest film stars of the 1990s, leading hits like The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, and Liar Liar. His success continued into the 2000s with How the Grinch Stole Christmas and Bruce Almighty, where he played Bruce Nolan, a man granted God's powers, played by Morgan Freeman, for a week. Bruce Almighty became Carrey's highest-grossing film, sparking a sequel, Evan Almighty, 2007. The follow-up shifted focus to Evan Baxter, Steve Carell, a side character from the original who transforms into a modern-day Noah. However, without Carrey's unique comedic energy, the sequel flopped as its appeal was tied to his performance, not the premise. And the 6th box office flop movie that nobody asked for is Tomorrowland. In the early 2000s, Disney began adapting its theme park attractions into films, with mixed results. While Pirates of the Caribbean became a massive success, movies like The Country Bears and The Haunted Mansion flopped. Then came 2015's Tomorrowland, a curious choice since it wasn't based on a specific ride, but an entire theme park land. Though not awful, the film is largely forgettable. Director Brad Bird delivers exciting action sequences, but the script, co-written by him, is weak. Despite highlights like a hidden passage under It's a Small World, the convoluted sci-fi plot fails to leave a lasting impact. And on number 5, we have Ghostbusters. The 1984 Ghostbusters is an iconic 80s comedy, beloved for its special effects and the comedic chemistry of Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, and Ernie Hudson. While 1989's Ghostbusters 2 was less popular, fans still wanted another sequel with the original cast. Instead, they got 2016's Ghostbusters, a reboot starring Kristen Wiig, Melissa McCarthy, Kate McKinnon, and Leslie Jones, directed by Paul Feig. Despite the talent involved, the film missed the charm of the original, with underdeveloped characters who felt like joke machines. Awkward cameos from the original cast further disappointed fans. The franchise course-corrected with 2021's Ghostbusters Afterlife, reuniting Murray, Aykroyd, and Hudson, and showing just how misjudged the 2016 reboot was. And on number 4, we have Dolittle. In the 2010s, Robert Downey Jr. became one of Hollywood's biggest stars through his iconic role as Tony Stark, Iron Man, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. After the monumental success of Avengers Endgame, which wrapped up Stark's story, Downey was free to take on new projects. Unfortunately, his first major post-MCU role was in 2020's Dolittle, a critical and commercial failure. The decision to revive the Dr. Dolittle franchise was puzzling, as the Eddie Murphy films from the late 90s had limited appeal, and few were clamoring for a Victorian-era reboot faithful to Hugh Lofting's books. Despite this shift in setting, the film clung to the juvenile humor of the Murphy movies, delivering unfunny gags and a dull narrative. The result was a forgettable flop that failed to justify its existence. And the third box office flop movie that nobody asked for is Alice Through the Looking Glass. Disney has a history of live-action remakes, but 2010's Alice in Wonderland is one of the weakest. Tim Burton's reimagining of the 1951 classic disappointed fans with its dull visuals and odd character changes. Yet it was a massive financial success, grossing over $1 billion. Buoyed by this, Disney greenlit a sequel, 2016's Alice Through the Looking Glass, despite the original's lukewarm reception. The sequel focused on Johnny Depp's Mad Hatter, a poorly received character few wanted to revisit. The result was a dull, unnecessary film that failed to capture audiences or replicate the financial success of its predecessor, leaving both Disney and viewers underwhelmed. And the second movie on our list is Cats. For decades, Cats thrived as a hit musical on Broadway and London's West End, but few were clamoring for a film adaptation. Nonetheless, Universal attempted one in 2019, releasing Tom Hooper's Cats, a notorious flop that failed to replicate the stage show's success. The film's biggest issue was its unsettling CGI, which drew immediate backlash online. Unlike Paramount's Sonic the Hedgehog, which delayed release to fix its designs, Universal doubled down, resulting in a film few wanted to watch. Beyond the visuals, the movie lacked standout performances, wasting a star-studded cast that included Judi Dench and Idris Elba. Predictably, Cats became a box office disaster that Universal should have avoided. And the last box office flop movie that nobody asked for is Mars Needs Moms. Robert Zemeckis' The Polar Express has become a holiday staple, but also introduced audiences to the uncanny motion capture animation style that would define much of his work in the 2000s. This technique was revisited in Mars Needs Moms, a costly production that became a predictable box office disaster. Based on a picture book with limited appeal compared to something like Where the Wild Things Are, the film faced an uphill battle from the start. Its biggest flaw, however, was the unsettling animation style, which had been novel in The Polar Express, but by 2011 was widely regarded as off-putting. Coupled with a weak story and minimal charm, the movie failed to resonate with audiences, leaving it largely forgotten and poorly received. Which of these 10 movies did you wish had never been a box office flop? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this.